Hello there, Kevin Furman, back again with another installment of the Book of the Month Club for E3LC. I am Kevin Furman, and going to be going through the last few chapters of How to Have Confidence and Power in Dealing with People by Les Giblin, and then sharing some thoughts. So ahead of that, if this is your first video, you happen to come across this thing, I'm a leadership trainer and a coach, like a professional life coach person, and helping people find out what they really, really want in life. And we ask each, like people ask that question of themselves, like, what do I want? But sometimes we don't really get to the heart of it. And so my mission, if you will, my goal at this point in my life is to find out what people really, really want and help them get that. That's really it. That's what it comes down to. And I've done that in different ways. My background's in the music field, and I've done through teaching and writing and performing. And even then, I was trying to help people get what they wanted in that realm. So the coaching idea is just an extension of that whole thing. So anyway, that's a little bit on me. The E3 is the three E's that I teach when I'm doing leadership training and coaching, what my mindset of like how things work, how things fit together. The three E's are effective with people, efficient with things, and encouraging with myself. And we currently are finishing up the last book in the series, of effective with people. And these last few chapters in the book are like just right in there, right in the thick of it, if you will. And so, oh, by the way, I just want to say, if you're interested in a complimentary coaching session, please get a hold of me. My email is kfurman at e3lc.net. And I'm going to uh, make sure that that's in the description so you can get a hold of me if you have questions, or if you want to get a complimentary session and find out if coaching is for you, what we might get out of coaching. Do a session, bring an issue, and let's see what we can create out of it and get you some forward movement in whatever it is that's either got you stuck or you're considering, or whatever it is you got going on. That's what I do in coaching, is I help people move forward, and it's all in that endeavor of getting what you really want. So, and that helps me get what I really want, which is helping people, and getting more out of life, sharing some of the wisdom that I've gleaned from other people, like Les in this book, and trying to help other people realize what they want and what they really, really want. Okay, enough on that message. So let's get to the book. So we're going to do chapters 11 through 14, and we're in what he called part 5 of the book. And part 5 of the book, he called it, how to manage people successfully, right? And even of that day, right? And he wrote this book back in the 50s, I think. He was, a salesman and working with businesses, trying to figure out, well, how do I get these people to work, right? How do I get them to do their stuff, do their job, and all that. So he was really out on the circuit talking about, well, how do you work with people? How do you get them to move along and get things going? So his whole thing was, how do you manage people successfully? So this is part 5, and there's a few chapters in here. His first one is, getting 100% cooperation and increasing your brain power. Sounds like a pretty good title, right? 100% cooperation. I could use a little of that myself. I don't know about you. So anyway, so he gets into, like, at the crux of it. He's not talking about, like, in every scenario, here's what you do step by step. He's talking about an approach, right, with people. And that's what he does. That's what, all the books that are classics like this do that. They talk about approaches. They don't talk about step by step. If you have this person in this situation, do this, right? That's a how-to book. These are more, not how to, but it's more like be to. So who do you be in the situation? How do you approach it in a way that's going to give you the best results? And they most, and less included, most of them are going to say, look, it's not going to work 100% of the time, but you're going to increase your odds dramatically if you approach it the right way, right? Approach people in a good way. So his main thing about getting cooperation. So let's get to the book. Sorry. His main thing about the cooperation is really, it kind of comes down to this, which is, he says it this way: make them feel like it's their problem too, right? And he gives examples of asking for help from a neighbor, business, things like that. And basically, he and I have to admit, I remember reading this and I didn't remember, like, absorbing it, but I know that I tend to do this, not as well as I should sometimes, but I tend to do this where I'll say, um, you know, instead of saying, "Look, I got this problem. What should I do?" Right? Instead of that, although I've in my head just now, I went back like, yeah, I guess I have used that too much, but I have also adopted this one. That's what he says. Like, shift the way you speak it. You say, it could be the same exact scenario, right? You say, well, if you were me, what would you do about it? Completely changes the dynamic of the question, right? It gives them a chance to give their expertise, makes them feel important, because they are important. You're trying to get their, buy-in, and so once you say, all right, well, if that's the way you do it, how about we do it that way, right? And then, okay, I'm in, right? So his whole point is that you get buy-in when it's their idea, not your idea that you force upon people, right? Which was a management style for a long, long time in the world, and that can be done. It's still being done. Obviously, people still force their way and do that, and that can get short-term results for sure. No problem with that. Long term, it usually creates a lot of resentment and turnover, and people feeling unenthused about their job. Productivity goes down. All kinds of symptoms of force. Right? When you get people to buy in, and he gets into this. So you say, instead of like, we're going to do it this way, you go like, look, what do you think? And this is his next point is, he mentions this little subtitle, multiply your brain power 10 to 100 times. Okay, that sounds great too, right? Some good titles, right? Two good points of things like, yeah, I'm interested. Basically, it's this: ask people. Ask people what they would do. Ask them their opinion. Ask them how they would handle the situation. If you manage a bunch of people, don't tell them how things are going to go down. There's times when you need to do that, but there's also times you can reframe it. Right? You can go to them and say, "All right, the end result, what we're looking for is this." Okay, and if we want to discuss the this, right? What is the end result? Great, let's discuss that first. If we agree that's the goal, and if it more productivity, more profits means more bonuses for all of us, whatever, right? Or we get raises, or we don't get laid off, or what, whatever the scenario, right? Depending on your situation. If we all agree, okay, that's the goal. Great. Okay, now here's the way we go about doing our jobs. This is the widget that we make. This is these services we provide, etc. Okay, let's talk about how we get there. Can we streamline things? If you guys had to streamline this part, what would you do? Right? How could we do this differently? And it's not the thing is about being the manager, you have to get your ego, and he talks about this earlier in the book, and the previous week we talked about ego getting in the way. When you start asking those kinds of questions, you have to give up the thought that you have all the answers and you're just you're the guy, and you're have the magic, and everyone just be in awe of everything you do. Good luck with that. I think if you are, then hey, this isn't for you. Most of us human beings on this earth aren't that way, so we need to go about it in a way that kind of fosters buy-in, if you will. And so you ask their opinion. If 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 you were me, how would you go about doing this? That's the basic premise of a lot of chapter 11. I think it's a really good premise. I think that has a lot to do with what is important about working with people. Is it's a cooperation. It's teamwork. It's not I'm the boss, you're the employee. I'm the lord, you're the serf. Like it's not that at all. When you look at how things really get done, and very successful companies, they've learned to be a team, and they not just in name only, not just like do a teamwork session and then we're all a team. Like day to day, you talk about systems and you work it out, and you say, okay, well, what do you see? You're the one doing this. What would be a better way to do this? Okay, tell me more. Right? Explain it to me. Great, that makes sense. Hmm. Okay. Well, we can't buy a whole new machine. We can't afford that. But can we tweak this one? Right? And you just go back and forth. You figure out, well, under the parameters we got, that's a great idea. Let's do that. Nice. Thank you. Right? And give them the credit. He doesn't talk about it here, but always give people credit. Right? Always, always, always. But he does get into that on chapter 12 a little bit, to some degree. So the last thing he talks about in chapter 11 that I'll go over is he talks about advice, right? So if you want, if yeah, this was it. He said the magic secret for asking for advice, right? So it's basically ask for advice when you want actual advice. Don't ask for advice when you want sympathy. Sympathy is fine, right? If you want to just vent and have your friend tell you, yeah, you're justified and you should feel bad and that was horrible and all right, let's toast to horribleness and then get over and get on with their lives, whatever, right? That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. There's times for that in life. We need to vent at times, right? We're human beings. Emotions need to be processed. That's one way to process them. But when you're asking for advice, you should have asked for advice, meaning tell me what I should do. And then when they tell you what they think, don't disregard it. Like that cuts down all kinds of cooperation. Like just, oh man, that will cut it faster than anything. Right. And you say, huh, that's interesting. Okay, I'm going to try that. That sounds great. Try it on. Right. Or have them clarify until it does make sense to you. Like, well, I don't really understand how that would work. Tell me more. Right. So you clarify and you go, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I'm going to give that a try. I'm going to go for it and I'll let you know how it works out, right? Something like that. So basically, just if you want sympathy, don't ask for advice. Be very clear about that. And so that's pretty much the big deal about the magic formula for asking for advice. You have to mean it, basically. All right, great. So then on to that's chapter 11. Chapter 12. Chapter 12 is how to use your miracle power in human relations. So you apparently have a miracle power in human relations, which you do, actually. And it is this. It's actually really, really simple. The miracle power you have that everybody on the planet has, and too often we're stingy with it. We think we're going to run out, and actually you can't run out of this. You can't. If you're really genuinely interested in other people and want to help, you can't run out of this. And that is this: praise. When you praise other people genuinely, and he makes a big deal about that, right? Be very genuine and sincere in your praise. Do not just praise things because you're supposed to, or gee, that's a great tie when it's you don't care about the tie, right? Don't do that, right? If it really strikes, if it's a tie that you go, wow, huh, I didn't notice that before. That's a cool looking tie. There you go, right? That's it's fine if it does hit you as a unique thing, great, right? Um, his big point about praise is it releases energy, it releases friction, right? And which he doubled back on something earlier in the book, which is this LSMFT, his acronym, right? The LSMFT, which isn't a great acronym, but it means low self-esteem means friction and trouble, which means that when people are having trouble, when they're feeling angsty, right? Probably there's a self-esteem problem there. There's something they're thinking about themselves that's got them stuck and they're feeling frustrated, and it's showing up as trouble, friction, whatever, right? They're being difficult to work with, or they're not doing their work, whatever. There's something going on in the way they're thinking about either themselves or the situation, or both. Usually it's both, even though most people think it's about the situation. um, Giving people praise on what they're doing well can shift out of that, right? Can release that energy of feeling like a victim or upset or frustration, and have them realize like, oh, I guess I'm doing okay in this area. Great. Well, then I guess it's not so bad. I can get busy, right? That's a really simple, silly example, but that's kind of what's going on here. Um, so that's his thing. He's like, your miracle power is praise. Praise people, and he says, look, you got to practice it. So he says, give genuine and sincere praise to someone every day, right? In this age of, we're living in a pandemic time where we're not really out and about as much. Some people are not about still at all. It depends on where you live, what city, state you're in, what area, how much the pandemic has affected your city, your community. You may not be out with people, but texting, Zoom calls like this, right? YouTube, not really YouTube, but Zoom calls, phone calls, just a phone call, right? You can even write a letter. God forbid, you can write a letter. Um, so just, you could do something, right? Just a quick text. Hey, just wanted to say I think you're awesome. Okay, now that depending on the situation, you probably have to give some context, right? Or if you see some, on Facebook, they post something that's really cool. Man, that's really awesome. That's it's cool that you got that project done, or whatever, right? Whatever they post, that's something you can praise. Um, he also says along those lines, like just every day, like make it a habit. That's the thing he was trying to get to. He didn't say like super explicitly, but it's just like just make it a habit to praise people. every day, right? Be worried about what's going on for other people and help them. That's going to help you. So do that, right? So along the same lines, he says to practice that, just be generous with kind statements. And you can give people kind statements. Again, you're not going to run out of kind statements. It's not like you have a limited amount of kindness in you. You can generate that. Um, so then he gets to like if you're going to be kind, right? Saying thank you is a good idea. So he has these 6 rules for saying thank you, right? These 6 rules. I'm just going to basically go just kind of really quick, and he's sort of making a point that saying thank you isn't just 2 little tiny words. They're actually, when they're done right, they're really, really important, and they're not throwaway words, right? We were taught to always say thank you, and it becomes a habit, like as in, oh, thank you, like you're supposed to do it. But if you really use the words, man, thanks for doing that. That's awesome, right? So if you really say it like you mean it, they're very powerful. So he said, okay, here's your 6 rules. Thanks should be sincere. Shocking, right? Okay, that's pretty self-explanatory. He also says, say it, don't mumble it, right? If you're going to say it, thank you to somebody, like make sure the energy's behind it, that it gets into where, to them, through whatever they're listening to, and right to them, like thank you, not mumbling like, oh, that's great, thanks a lot, right? But thank you, that was great. Um, Also, his third rule: thank people by name. Look at the person you're thanking, right? So just running off saying, "Hey, that was great, thanks a lot," doesn't send the right message, right? It sends a message of, "I don't really mean this," or "I'm not sure if you really deserve it." There's all kinds of hidden messages in that body language you got to be careful of. The fifth one is work at thanking people. You have to look for opportunities to thank people and practice it. He says, just get practiced at it, right? Be deliberate about it. And then the best thing, which I think in his list, although they're all really great, but one of the things I think has the biggest impact without more work is to thank people when they least expect it, right? When somebody wins a gold medal, of course they're going to get thanked and praised, and not that you shouldn't, and you should, because that's a big, big deal. But thanking them later, man, thanks for putting in all those years of work. Get that is amazing. Right? That's different. That's a different kind of acknowledgement of what they did than just you won the gold. Again, winning the gold is a huge deal. I'm not belittling the gold. I'm just saying try to thank people when they least expect it, not when they most expect it. Right? It'll have more impact that way. I think it's smart. Smart little move. And then the other thing is praise and attribute. So this is kind of a thing later. He talks about just administering praise. Praise and attribute, not the person, right? Not you're awesome for winning the gold, but man, winning the gold, nice job. That's amazing. I mean, it's very slight distinction. Think of another example. Oh, thanks for cleaning your room. It looks fantastic. Things look very neat, and you can find things. Way to go! Rather than you're a good son for cleaning your room, right? They're both similar, right? But you're praising the at what they're doing, the action, rather than just the person. As an aside, I think if we just praise the person over and over and over without addressing action, it gives this false sense of, I don't even say security. It's just this false sense of I don't need to do anything in the world to receive praise. And not that people don't deserve praise for being a human being. I'm talking about beyond that, like day to day to day. When you're doing things that are helpful in the world, that should be praised. If you're just existing, yeah, you're a human being, and then what, right? So I'm not saying people aren't inherently worthy, because of course they are. That's a given. What I'm saying is you can create a sense of entitlement when all you praise is the person and not the actions. So it's best to praise actions and not the person, to create actually a healthy self-esteem that they understand what they do matters, not just showing up and sitting and waiting for praise, right? That's fine to a point, and there's more to it, right? There's more to life than that. So there's that. So that he just makes a point about praising the attribute of the person. So there's chapter 12. Pretty simple, pretty straight ahead. Okay. Chapter 13 is how to criticize others without offending them. That sounds like a great idea, right? I don't want to offend people, and when you're trying to criticize them, easy to take offense at that, right? So he says, look, instead of thinking of criticism as you're going to cut them down, right? And the word criticism, depending on how far you want to take this, but like the Latin root is to rip of the flesh. so so to criticize, right, is literally a very violent type thing in our language, like just inherently in what the word means. Now, we don't usually think of it that way. That's not what criticism is held as, but it's hardly anyone looks forward to criticism, right? And even that's my dog helping. Even when people are, thinking of constructive criticism, it's usually my experience as of the last 10 years. When people hear the word constructive criticism, they just hear it like, oh, you're just trying to put a positive spin on somebody telling me I'm wrong, which is more true than I had to admit. I've heard that too much, right? I'm constructive criticizing you. No, you're just criticizing. You're just being mean and trying to cut people down, right? And you're just trying to couch it instead of this I'm being constructive thing. Because that's what we keep hearing it, but we're not hearing the subtlety of that. Like, how do you do that, right? And that's what he kind of gets into. So he says, okay, if you're going to be successful at criticism, i.e., if you're going to not create resentment, right, or offend people, he has 7 musts. All right, here you go. So here's the 7 musts. 1, criticism must be made in absolute privacy. Right, so don't criticize people in front of others. Don't don't send a blanket email, right, to a bunch of people criticizing one person. Even an email in and of itself is probably not a good idea, because email can be public no matter what. Even if it is one-to-one, it can be made public, right? So criticizing best, just absolute privacy. Number 2, um, start with a kind word or compliment, right? It's sort of there's some people call the compliment sandwich or the criticism sandwich, depending on who you've talked to or what you've heard, right? You compliment, words of encouragement / criticism, and another kind word. And he actually talks about this in his 7 steps. He gives it more meat, if you will. But do start with a kind word, compliment, like, hey, you're doing this is great. I really like this about you. This is awesome. And then you and just like the praise, you criticize the act, not the person. Especially when you're criticizing. This is where it's even more important to focus on what happened, the act that was taken, not the person or their intentions or their feelings, right? So you want to avoid all of the latter part and just focus on what happened, what they did or did not do. Criticize that. Don't worry about the rest of it, right? Don't bring that in. That is definitely going to cut to their ego. And they're gonna get defensive. They're gonna be offended much more easily if you do that. So that's a big thing. I think that's a really good idea. Now, he also talks about supplying the answer, and there was a point. Yeah. Okay, so he was talking about, like, a lot of workers will complain, like, well, I don't know what is expected of me. I don't know what the boss wants. I'm doing my job, but it never seems to be good enough. I don't know what he wants, right? The expectation is not clearly defined. So if you're going to criticize, like, this didn't work, okay, well, in the future, here's how it should end up. We want it this way, right? We want to go about it this way. We want the end result to be this. This is what we're shooting for, and just make sure that that's clear and understood. And, like, okay, does that make sense? You see how it works in the system? Perfect. Okay, great. And then anything in the way of for you that will, that I can do to help get that in that direction, and they can explain, yeah, this is in my way, we don't have XYZ and I need it. Okay, fine, let's work on, can we get that, or can we rearrange timing or something, right? So we can work out solutions if everybody's understanding where we're going, what is right, what's the end result they're looking for. And then he also talks, he kind of refers to the first part, which is you ask for cooperation. You don't just say, well, do this or else, or you're fired. You can, right? Again, short term, you can do that. If you're the boss, manager, you can do that. It's not going to create a lot of teamwork feeling, and it's not going to build as much trust as you want, right? So you want to say, okay, So looking at this, does this make sense? Does you see the process? Is there something in there I'm missing that will help you get to that end result more quickly than what we're talking about now? Because I just want you to have what you want. Um, that's one way to do it, right? Uh, so what you do is, um, so here's what we're going for. Like he says, here's a quote out of the book. Here's what we're shooting for, and here's how you can help achieve that goal, right? So we're shooting for this. This is your part in it. This is how we're going to do it. If you see a problem with the process, let me know right now. Let's fix the process so that it's good for you, right? So there's that. Um, the sixth thing is one criticism to an offense. So you don't criticize it more than once. So if it happens, don't have 14 criticisms about it or three things about it that were wrong. Just this didn't work. Great. Let's see if we can work on the system and fix it. Here's what we're going for. Does that make sense? Great. And anything you can see that we would need to fix about the process. You tell me if it's going to work for you, right? And then you finish. Seventh one is finish in a friendly fashion, right? He doesn't really talk about like giving another compliment or something. He just says, it's like, hey, I know you can handle this. Thanks for coming in. I appreciate you listening. We're all on the same team. This is going to be great. Give encouragement. Like, I know you can handle this. Or just put your attention on this detail, and you're good. Right? Something that simple. He talks about that. So there you go. That is chapter 13. So it's really all about just going through a process of realizing that everybody's trying to do their best. He didn't say this, but that's kind of what he's doing. Is just, they're doing their best. They made a mistake. Okay, well, if it needs to be addressed, then address it, but do it in a way that's not going to offend them. And those 7 steps are really, really good. All right, chapter 14. So that that actually 11 through 13, those are kind of the information ones. And the last one is full of here, fill this out for yourself, right? So he talks a lot about, you know, information's great, but if you don't do anything, forget about it, right? And he talks about knowledge plus action equals success. So you can have the knowledge, but if you don't take action, not gonna do much, right? So nothing really happens until you apply the knowledge that you have instead of it being just information in your brain. Confucius has a great statement. He's apparently he's quoted as saying this: knowledge without practice is useless. Practice without knowledge is dangerous. Right? So if you just run out there doing stuff without really knowing what you're doing, it actually can cause a lot of problems. If you know everything about what to do but don't act, who cares? Like, it doesn't matter. You're not doing anything. It's great that you know it, but it's not helping the world be any better. It's not fixing whatever situation it is, right? It's not forwarding the action, basically. So he goes through and says, look, why don't you go through each big areas of your life, talk about how you're going to do it, and he actually has a self improvement program, has a checklist. So he says, each week, each month, whatever works for you, go through this checklist. There's 30 of them on this list, and then you go through them and you say, look, do I one of them? Do I assume that the other fellow person, whatever, will be friendly and take the initiative in meeting him more than halfway? Right. So when you meet new people, do you go out of your way to introduce yourself? Do you meet them more than halfway, or do you expect them to make the first move? Right, he just says, look, do you do that or not? Generally speaking, right? If you do, okay, move on to the next one. Right, that's not an area you need to work on. If you don't, maybe you should. Right? That's an example. Right, there's 30 of those things. So there is confidence, power, in dealing with people. Les Giblin, nice. So again, if you're interested in finding out more about not only the book but just furthering what you want in life, get a hold of me and email me, kfurman@e3lc.net, and let me know if you'd like to do a complimentary coaching session. We can sit down, chat about a situation, and then see if coaching might be a good thing for a project you got or something, some big thing, and you're going to do a move, or you're transitioning in your job, or you're starting a business, or you're going to change jobs, or whatever it is, right? Life is going on. And if you're stuck, you seemingly stuck, or seem like you need answers for yourself, then let me know. We can sit down and see if coaching might be the route for you. So thanks a lot for checking it out. Oh, next week we're gonna work on. So we're gonna start on be efficient with things, and we're gonna run through a book called The Daily Edge. So we're gonna start that off, and it's actually a really short book. So we're gonna keep it still to the whole month, but there's only going to be a few pages a week to read. So if you're, not a huge reader, you just want to hear people talk about stuff, great. But this one's a short, it's like half the size of this guy, all right? So it's pretty short and it's a really quick read. It's great. It's got a lot of it's like tips, how to get more effective, right, with things, which is the theme, right? So we'll start that next week. And thanks a lot for checking it out. We'll see you next time. Take care.